Okay, so we're going to continue with part 2 of Healing the Orphan Heart. And I'm going to go to the Roman numeral 4 in your notes. So, do you prefer people to be real, where you kind of know who they are and you could sense that they're authentic? Or do you prefer them to be kind of fake, where you're not really sure if what they're presenting is really authentically who they are? You just can't tell. Isn't authentic better? Just being real, being who you are. I like this quote from Brene Brown. Brene Brown is a shame researcher. If you never saw any of her videos, she has a video, a TED Talk called The Power of Vulnerability. If you just search Brene Brown, it's like Renee with a B. Brene Brown, The Power of Vulnerability. It's a TED Talk. Really, really excellent. It was in 2014. I had a little bit of a breakdown of sorts. That was 3 years ago. 2014. We were doing marriage ministry like we're doing now, and we got a few invitations to travel, to do a seminar in other places. And so the first invitation was to go to Orlando, to the House of Prayer, to do a Valentine's Day marriage weekend in a hotel. Dinner, dressing up, the whole deal. We were going to be the speakers. And so it was great, it was exciting, but then I started to have anxiety attack and extreme fear, and I bottomed out. I was like a hitter that couldn't get a hit anymore at the plate. I was just, I'd lost, I was like, what's happened to me? It was like the bottom, I hit bottom, which is a good thing, right? It's like they used to say in AA, raising the bottom for the alcoholic. But we need to raise the bottom. This person needs to hit bottom. Let's raise the bottom. So I hit bottom, and I before we went to Orlando, I was like barraged with thoughts and emotions and feelings like, I am so going to bomb this. They are paying for my airfare, my hotel, honorarium. Oh my gosh, I was like flipping out. And I tried to, Ann tried to encourage me, and I tried to encourage myself, and it wasn't working. Did you ever have that experience where what you were trying to do, all the spiritual skills and tools you knew, weren't working? Don't raise your hand, but has anybody ever experienced that? Rhetorical question. Of course we have. And so I came across, I was on a website, I was on a John Eldredge website, and on the sidebar there was this book called The Gifts of Imperfection. I think it's in your notes there, right? At the bottom, possibly as a footnote. Is that down in there? Yeah. So I saw The Gifts of Imperfection, and I thought, why is that on this website? And it had a little label on it that it was an Oprah Book of the Month or something. And I'm like, I will definitely not read that book. That's probably some liberal, positive thinking, whatever type of book. I'm not going to read that. Well, the Holy Spirit's like, you need to get that book. Okay. So I got the book. Absolutely life-changing. I read it twice that year. I read it twice more since. I've read it 4 times. And what it did was, it was almost like a Google translator for me. When you go to a page that's in a different language and the pop-up comes, you want Google to translate this page. And all of a sudden, now I understand what all this gibberish was. That's what this book did for me. It was like a Google translator. And it gave me shame language. It gave me great insights. And obviously the Holy Spirit was like, yes. And he was helping me to apply it in my life, and to know exactly what I was fighting against and how to speak truth to myself. Tremendous, tremendous book. And that got me through we went out speaking, I think 5 times that year, and it got me through that. And I still refer to it now. But she says, letter A, owning our story can be hard, but not nearly as difficult as spending our lives running from it. Guaranteed, you will get more tired if you keep running from your story. If you keep insisting on bearing it, you'll be more tired than if you just face it. Though on the front end, you may not feel that way. She talks about courage, and the root word for courage is the word C-O-R. It's a Latin word for heart. And the original meaning of courage, I mean, now we apply courage to, heroes that are brave and do brave things, which is fine. But the original meaning conveyed a person's bravery in sharing their heart. Living open and honest, being willing to be vulnerable. That's courageous. That's courageous. And she also talks about compassion, the importance of compassion. She starts out the book talking about courage and compassion and connection. How we need all three of those. We need to be courageous. Okay, I think I know what I need to do. I need to talk about this, or I need to talk about that, or I need to go to this memory or this place. I'm gonna be courageous in the strength of the Lord. I'm gonna be courageous. But also compassion, and that includes self-compassion. I have been so hard on myself historically that I don't even want to come out to face myself. Don't you come out. We don't want to hear what you're really feeling. I was an enemy to myself. Does that make sense? So self-compassion is huge. And then connecting, being willing to let other people, safe people, into your story. I mean, if you plan on going into surgery with just a doctor and no nurses and no technicians, you're crazy. You need a support team. You just do. And pray that God will bring you a safe one. So we need connection. We need like real people. Facebook can't go into the operating room with you. Technology is a connection imposter. And I have battled, here and there over the past couple of years with actually feeling offended by the small amount of likes I got. Or by this not happening. Or I've actually felt jealous. A couple of years ago, there was a 40th birthday party for this guy, and all the guys were posting about how great the party was. Guess who wasn't invited? Rizzo. I'm like, so again, so there was the incoming thought, right? They don't want you there, all that kind of. No, not going to receive that. So as we grow and we get to recognize these things, we could just say, nope, I see that coming from a long way off. Not going to receive that. But there are times that things have landed, and I felt them explode in me. And so we don't want to depend upon technology for our connecting. And the same thing happened when we wrote a book a couple years ago. Doesn't matter how many copies it sells or how many reviews it has on Amazon. Doesn't matter. And so I had to go through, not finding my identity in those things. So we all have a built-in desire for love and belonging. And so to truly belong, we must discover our authentic selves. I'm not running from me anymore. I want to be just who I am. And to this day, I still say, Lord, if there's anything I'm using as a cover-up, any places where I'm hiding, please feel free. I mean, you're already there and you see it. Feel free to show me what it is so I can join in the partnership. To get something better in there. Letter D, our arch enemy is shame. So shame basically says that who I am is unworthy of belonging. I am flawed. Right? Guilt is I did something wrong. Shame is I am something wrong. There's something wrong with me. I'm flawed. Defect. And it's the never enough challenge. Never, fill in the blank, enough. So whatever that is in your life, could be a number of different things, but it's just never enough. That's shame talk. Now our culture exerts a powerful influence of expectation, doesn't it? Powerful pressures are exerted upon us. Men need to be strong. Don't be perceived as being weak. Just keep your emotions under control. Take risks, be self-reliant, work hard, improve your status, climb the ladder. That's what men are expected to do. And if we buy into that in an unhealthy way, we will feel shame if we don't reach a certain level. I would feel shame. We went to someone's house and we were having dinner at someone's house and they were talking about how they paid off their mortgage. And this dark cloud, like Pigpen in the old Charlie Brown comics, the dark cloud just comes and, boy, you really suck. You got 10 years left on your mortgage. You're 63. Wow, epic fail. And these thoughts just come like a cloud. Got to just resist it. Is that the Holy Spirit? I don't think so. So I'm not going to receive it. And then you tell yourself the truth, you know. So it could be anything, any arena of life, whatever it is for you. I'm not a builder. I'm not a guy to add a room onto a house. So if I go to someone's house and they're like, "Hey, let me show you the new addition I put on," okay. So I'm praying in tongues. I know this is Groundhog Day for me. I'm Ned the insurance salesman. There's that whole. I know myself. Oh, that's great. He's telling me all the stuff I don't understand, how he had to knock out this wall and do this to that wall and frame that in that way and do this. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, hey, let's go get a cup of coffee or something, you know. And so I would feel shame. I am not good enough. I can't do that. And so, again, the way I was raised, whatever I did wasn't good enough. I used to love washing our car. We had a Ford Galaxy 500, 3-speed on the column. Man, that was a beauty of a car. Clutch. I learned how to drive on that thing. And I wish I had it today in mint condition. Then I'd pay off my mortgage. I'd sell that thing. And then I'd be somebody. Just kidding. I used to love to, get it all sudsed up and washed, get the soap on. And then for a kid, for 8-year-old, 10-year-old kid, rinsing it off is the fun, right? You get the hose going and you're rinsing it off. And I remember this one time my dad came home and he just saw me and he saw how long I was rinsing the car off for. We're on a water meter. He just lit into me. And, that multiplied times whatever was my dad. Whatever you were doing, you did something wrong. And so you just get branded. You just get stamped. Your passport keeps getting stamped page after page with that kind of stuff. And after a while, it forms a pattern of thinking, right? It forms a neuronal pathway even in your brain, they say. And I guess I can't do stuff very good. Now, obviously, that was the first 21 years of my life. Now I'm in a times 2. I'm 42 years, so double the 21. I'm 42 years a Christian. So I'm 2/3 to 1/3. So I'm loving being the majority. It's like having the vote in the House and the Senate and every other governing body. I'm in charge. I'm not perfect. I still have my days. But I'm making bank in spiritual growth and progress, leaning extremely heavily on the grace of God. But you got to start somewhere in your journey to make that shift and start building your majority. So then you start naturally thinking good. But you got to start somewhere. And a lot of people are like, well, if I can't get it in a week's time, why bother? All right. You want same old, same old. Good luck. Of course, women, what you need to do is stay as small and sweet and quiet as possible. Just buy a bunch of magazines with the covers of women and just be like them. Look like them. What a shameful thing the enemy does to women. Holding up this standard. Just like he does with the men. And trying to get us to buy into it. So deceptive. So there's 2 dangerous components, letter E, of this picture are comparison, obviously. Comparison. I don't look like the Marlboro man. Or I don't look like the guy with the Was it a 6-pack or an 8-pack? What is it that I have, Joshua? A 6-pack or an 8-pack? He's not touching that one. Okay. So, did you say a keg? Did you say a keg? Wow. After meeting. Okay. So, two things that happen. One is comparison, and you keep comparing yourself to those things, and the other is disengagement. I'm checking out. So, comparison and disengagement, or both of those things happen. Now, healthy competition is a good thing, right? But comparison with the wrong mindset is a horrible plumb line. It would be like taking a level and you're trying to see if something's level, right? Well, say you got a defective level from the factory and the bubble doesn't show up where it's supposed to. Then you're trying to use that level to build your house or to level a picture or a cabinet or something like that. Well, using this kind of comparison mindset is a terrible plumb line. It's just off. It's never going to work. Another form of comparison is cloaked in nostalgia. So you could think back to a previous season of your life, and when you think back, you subconsciously edit it to make it perfect. So nostalgia can be a tricky trap even to get stuck with always going back and always going back and always going back to thinking how it was, and you're subconsciously editing it all the time to make it look better, and you've stopped moving forward, and you're living in that pleasant, unreal memory. I've done that in my own life. I've done it even through TV shows, through media, going back and revisited places where I would feel better, make myself feel better. Being involved with someone else's family, someone else's storyline. We love watching movies and good quality things. I love story, but I also know what it's like to escape into story that some writers developed and wrote, and because my life isn't worth a whole lot, I think I'll just join their lives. People do that a lot. They don't realize that they're doing it as they're binging on some story or some group of people, and they're moving through a story with these group of people. And I mean, again, disclaimer, I do watch things, do watch stuff, enjoy it, just to relax. But if you're injecting that into you constantly, and that's your source, you're living someone else's life. Number 5, let's talk about grieving, because when we suffer a loss in life, the only solution really is to grieve. Grieving is a good thing. Feeling the pain, crying, talking about it. So I mentioned earlier about my dad. My mom got Alzheimer's when she was like 71 years old. And my dad, who was an alcoholic and a very distant man, did a major turnaround when my mom got Alzheimer's. My dad did a major turnaround and took care of her for 8 years. She died when she was 79. He kept her at home. He, diapered her. He gave her full care, except for a couple of brief hospital stays. He took care of her at home. We're like, who are you? And what have you done with my dad? He became a different man. It's miraculous. And so we developed a good relationship in our later years. And when he got sick, when he had some strokes and he was in a nursing home, I would go to visit him, and he couldn't really use his arms for a while, his one arm. And so I would, bring him coffee, and I would hold it up to his, lips, feed him, give him the coffee, and break off a piece of donut and feed him his donut. And he and I really bonded. And an older brother of mine didn't visit my dad, and so there was brokenness there. And my dad, where's your brother? How come he doesn't come? Oh, I don't know, Dad. So I was like the son trying to fill a void in my dad's life. It was really a beautiful time. And so we had lived in one house. Moved into this house when I was 2 years old, and so here I was, a 52-year-old at the time. So we lived in this house for 50 years, and we had to sell it because mom was gone and dad was not doing well. So we were going to sell the house. So I was responsible to uh, clean out the house. So there was a basement, there was a main floor, there was an attic, there was a garage, there was a garage attic, and my dad was an accumulator. Anybody in here a saver or an accumulator? And you got the space, and you're running out of space. Well, anyway, my dad had a lot of stuff, and so I had to go into the basement, and the basement was my play area. When I was a kid, grade school kid, I go down in the basement, and there was my cave, and there was my that. You know how you make up stories when you're a young boy, right? And my mom, she used to be a beautician, and she had this hair dryer. You sat in this chair, and this big hood came over you. You ever see them hair dryers? And I would turn that on. That was my spaceship. I mean, what a spaceship, right? Most of you guys probably didn't have something like that. Well, I had that, sound effects and all. I had to throw that out. I had to put that to the curb. I wasn't going to save it. I had to put that to the curb. I wasn't that attached to it, to put it that way. But I had to put it to the curb, and I wept in that basement. I was grieving a number of things. I was grieving on multiple levels. My dad was dying. Our childhood home was being sold. All my memories there. And I had some good cries in that basement. And it felt so good. And so the truth I walked away with is it's never too late to have a good childhood if we're willing to face our losses and rework them at the source. Don't believe the enemy's lie. He doesn't own those parts of your life. He does not own those parts of your life. They've been purchased, bought, and fully paid for by Jesus. That is the truth. Your childhood's not a waste. It's not a write-off. It's not just forget about it. It's Abba, it's Jesus, it's Holy Spirit saying, we want to go there with you and redeem it. The father wound is like a loss that must be grieved. And the Godhead is standing by with a new frame and canvas to redeem the storyline of our childhood. Letter D, times of grieving are among the most fruitful harvest times. And those times of grieving for me in my childhood home, 52 years old on the surface, but the little boy on the inside was getting healing. So it was a great season. And another principle I learned is letter E. This is in your notes, right? Letter E. When you're searching through the rubble, save the good bricks. You know the story of Nehemiah, how he saved certain bricks and reused them in the wall. And it wasn't all bad. When you're searching through the rubble, it's like, hey, this was a good thing in my childhood. My dad did some good things. My dad taught me how to swim. We lived by a lake, by Lake Erie. And I learned how to swim in the lake. He'd take me out there, and there was this big rock, which seemed like it was way out there. As a kid, it was like, this rock was way out there. It must have been a mile out there. It's probably, eighth of a mile or maybe even that. But it was deep water. He'd take me out there, and I was learning how to swim, and so he let me swim for a while. And then he'd say, if you need me, just call for me, and I'm right here. And so I could still remember the memory of swimming with him. And, we're Italians. Anybody Italians in here? We're a dying breed. Italians? Thank you. So we have kind of oily skin, us Italians. You know what I'm saying? Olive oil, it's right inside of us. And my wife even tells me, this is true confession, sir. My wife she'll even spray my pillow with some kind of essential oil or something, or freshener, essential oil or whatever, because my skin oils mess up the pillow. But We're okay with that. We worked it through. But I can remember grabbing my dad's shoulders and just feeling, it's probably from the water and the oil, just feeling like a slipperiness. You know, memories have feel to them. Memories even have smell to them. It's amazing how our brains are constructed. But so there's good things. And so the Lord was encouraging me to, save the good bricks when you're searching through the rubble. Keep the good bricks that you had from your childhood, from your life. One time, one of my dad's buddies from the Marines was visiting. He was from New York City, and my parents had not got home yet. I think I was like 12 years old, something like that. And so my mom taught me hospitality. So I actually made this guy, his name was Frank Silvaca from New York City. I made him a pot of coffee. Now, back then, we had these percolators. You know what I'm talking about? Well, I made the coffee. I think it was pretty good. And I took him for a walk in the neighborhood around the block and showed him like the baseball field and different parts or whatever. And when my parents came home, he commented to my parents on my hospitality. And that was like, I didn't get compliments. So that guy saying that thing about how I made the pot of coffee was like, wow. I mean, it felt so good. It was something, I was being affirmed. It was a compliment. Wow. So whether it's from your parents or other parts of your life, like when the enemy says your life's a total wasteland, nothing good ever happened, ask the Lord about that. Because there's some good stuff that he wants to compile. And so in his mercy, God allows emotions to surface out of us, and positive or negative, the emotions put us in touch with our true selves. That's the point, is authenticity, getting in touch with your true self. If it has to involve a little crying or a little discomfort, small price to pay. But the thing is redirecting our feelings into a renewed mind, that Judy mentioned earlier. Redirecting the feelings that come up into a renewed mind. It's a process. It takes time. It's like taking a grain of sand from this side of the scale to this side. One more, little by little, you start to shift the weight into a renewed mind. And it all culminates with giving away what you receive. So becoming a spiritual father, becoming a spiritual mentor. Paul talks about it in 1 Corinthians chapter 4. He says you got lots of teachers, but not many fathers. Finding a spiritual mentor, a father or a mother for a mentor, is not like a yellow page deal. It's not like they're low-hanging fruit. They're hard to find, even for me. It's just a commodity that is just rare. And teachers, we appreciate them, lots of them. But becoming a spiritual father is really what his plan is for you and me. So it's about being healed, and changing over the years. And then, as the years go by, you start to give away what you learn. God sets up different things, and then you'll walk away and you'll say, I think I kind of sort of fathered that guy or that girl a little bit there. Wow, that was cool. That's his plan. That's his plan. So everyone's called to reproduce, to, at some level, be a spiritual parent. And so forgiveness is really important, because if we live in offense, living in offense is one of the greatest hindrances to spiritual growth. Living in offense is one of the primary causes of a lack of fathers in the church. If you don't get rid of your offenses, if you don't forgive, if you insist on keeping your world as is, there'll be very little reproduction in your life. Your resources will be tied up. It's like having all your money, tied up in one account. If you're not dealing with offenses or unforgiveness and keeping your energies there to keep those things in place, and there's nothing left really to work with in other areas. I had my first pastor that whose church I was at after I got saved for 18 years, and I was on staff for 10 years. And I learned how to do counseling and teaching there, and he was like one of my idols, my icons. He's my first pastor. He's about 20 years older than me. And my life was good until the drive-by happened. And the drive-by was he wanted to take Ann and I out for breakfast one day. I knew something was up. And what he wanted to tell us was that he thought that our time there was done at the church. And that was like a dagger. It's like, and we liked it there. Our kids were like 11, 10, 8 years old, and we were established there. I was on staff there for 10 years. He was the father figure for me, and he was saying, what I heard was, we don't want you here anymore. His words were, I think it's time for you to pastor your own church. And looking back now, I see that I was initiated by his cruelty, or by what he said. I'm sorry, that was a slip of the tongue. I would have never left that church. I would have stayed right where I was in my comfort zone. And he helped me, quotes, helped me to land a pastorate in a nearby city, about half hour or so away. So I went from a 1,500 member church on staff, established, looked up to as a teacher and a counselor, to a 30-member struggling church with a ton of debt. I was 39 years old. Most of the congregation were in their 60s. That's what I am now. And 70s. The worship was a piano and sometimes an organ. It was like DRY. That's not an acronym, it's a word. And I spent a year there, and I'm ashamed, I'm not proud to say that I would go in the church to pray, and I would use vulgarity. I would drop what bombs, and I was so angry, and that I was given this horrible position. And it took me probably about 12 years to forgive my pastor. I just kept doing it. If somebody came from that area and said his name, I got a twitch inside. That rotten son of a... And I had these strong feelings, but year by year, and then finally it was, I think it was 3 years ago, we went back to Buffalo, and we went back to that church, and we got to meet with him, and both Ann and I, who had been forgiving him all this time, didn't feel anything but love. You got to do it and keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. It's enough when it's enough. Don't give up. Don't go by emotions. Just keep forgiving, keep releasing, keep renouncing lies that the enemy, tries to remind you of stuff why you should not forgive. Keep at it. Because those consumed with what they're owed will not spend much time in pouring out their lives. Is that in your notes? That should be in your notes. Watch the video. Those consumed with what they are owed will not spend much time in pouring out their lives. Because debt collecting consumes all your energy. I got to collect me some debts today. Somebody owes me. And finally, letter C. That's in your notes, right? I love this John Arnott quote, that a fatherless church is not going to rescue a fatherless world. Powerful quote from John Arnott. And so I've got to get healing from the orphan heart in increasing measure. I am going to be a spiritual father to the best of my ability because our world needs it. So, Father, help us. Help us to embrace all that you are bringing across our path. We know that we can overcome the orphan heart, and we can walk in your love and your security and sense of belonging by your power and by your grace. So we just say yes to you again right now. We say yes. We believe that you will send us the help we need, the support we need, the grace that we need to do it. And we want to do it for your glory. So we ask this in Jesus' name tonight. Amen. Amen.